Grace and peace be to you from God our Father and our Lord Jesus Christ. Popular wisdom says if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. But the problem that the leaders have is that they stood for something that didn't allow them to take yes for an answer. Jesus' opponents were so stuck on the fact that they were determined to play the bad hand that they had made for themselves and refused to take the winning hand that they were offered by Jesus. In doing so, they replayed what their forebears had done so often, as we heard in Isaiah. The prophets came with a message from God, and the leaders, and then the people, ignored those words from the prophets. Their blindness of unbelief was exposed by Jesus, as well as their evil intent. While this parable has a devastating ending, the church quickly realized that that wasn't the end of the story. The whole Gospel of Matthew so often talks about hypocrisy. Hypocrisy being that something appears to be different than what it really is. That hypocrisy is the leaders saying that they love God and they love neighbor, and yet they gave the appearance that that was the case, but it really wasn't true. And Jesus comes and says that there's trouble in the vineyard. And there is, because people are unable to be living their lives in a way that produces the fruits that is expected from the owner. But what the owner does is amazing, because the very thing that the leaders do to try to get rid of Jesus is the very thing that offers salvation to them. And so for every time the story is read to vineyards everywhere, the owner keeps sending the son. And what does he do with those miserable wretches? He sends the son who has died for them and comes with comfort, comes with life, comes with hope, and comes with faith, because it's not them who died, but it's the Son. And God has vindicated his mercy and grace. And so the vineyards are restored by the very death that looked like it was going to be the end of them. Our lives are not our own. There's no way around that. And there's no way around the fact that so easy every one of these stories that Jesus tells can be done so it just becomes a finger-pointing exercise of saying, what about you? Where do you stand in all of this? What's your fruit? What are things looking like? And maybe as a congregation, what's our fruit? What are we producing? That's so easy, all of this can be turned into just another accusation, another problem, another burden. But that isn't what Jesus has in mind at all. So often, the grace that Jesus exercises on vineyards all over the place remains a problem. Those who have long standing in the vineyard want rewards from their seniority and achievements, or they want the fruit for themselves, or they just want to rest on their laurels. When everything isn't all right in the vineyard, the thing that people cry out for is judgment. But the story that we tell is one where when there's chaos in the vineyard, the Son comes to bring peace. To bring peace through his grace and mercy and righteousness. And there, like we were talking about with the kids, is the idea is that we would run to him instead of run away from him. Because he says to us, "Come to me, all you who are weary, carrying heavy burdens, like vineyards that aren't working right, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke and learn from me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Our lives are not our own. And the fruit that is demanded of us is faith. And perhaps the hard part of that, living out in faith, is the fact that we take ideas and ideals and we have to turn them into actual thoughts and actions. And so even something as simple as standing for the gospel, we don't realize may actually have meaning about our faith. It isn't just a simple ritual, as much as it is really of saying we understand that the word is among us, and that word is good news, and that word is here to yoke us to the one who died and has risen again, that it might change our lives. Just like Paul, who speaks the words that he spoke to us this morning, understanding that life gets radically altered when we encounter Jesus. That's why we start our service with an order of confession, is because it isn't that we're just going, "I'm sorry," although that may be true. As much as we realize that when we come in his presence, we enter his truth. And the truth about us is something that is startling. And yet Jesus doesn't recoil from that or turn his back on us for that. He embraces us to come to him so that we could hear that not only is that true, but so is the truth of his love and his grace and his life. We live in difficult times in all sorts of unsettling ways. We mourn the death of 59 people who senselessly were killed. And we scratch our heads to try to figure out, how can we stop that? And any way that we start suggesting what the answers are, is we know that somehow, some way, that isn't going to please everybody. And we turn and coalesce into sides and tribes and all sorts of things like that. And the only way is to kind of ignore it and until the next thing comes, and then we say, well, now we need to do something. Jesus is calling us to faith, to trust him, and to trust that in this life that he offers us there is the truth, there is the solution to the answer. Is not to run away from him, but to get ever closer and closer. That's why he invites us to his table, that we would know his table of grace and learn his ways. Food for all are satisfied, all have a place at the table. And that we would turn that into actual, tangible, concrete actions. Yes, there's trouble in the vineyards. Maybe in our own vineyard of our heart. Maybe in the vineyard of this congregation. Certainly in the vineyard of this country. And yet the good news is the fact that Jesus keeps on coming. His death and resurrection never wear out. Until the time when all of us are able to take yes as his answer. Amen.